You know, when you go out and try to do something new, even in the music world, maybe try to put out a new song or try recording for the first time and going out and playing shows, whatever it may be that you're taking that next step in, there always just seems to be these people that step up and are happy to tell you what you're doing wrong, how you can do it better, and why you may never succeed at this. Well, those people are the gatekeepers, the people that can only find negative reasons and try to keep you down to keep themselves up. And maybe it's time we had to think on that.
Hello and welcome to the 145 Rural Podcast, where we are here to strengthen music careers and communities one song at a time. And now here's your host, Jacob Wing. Yay!
Hey everybody, and welcome to today's episode. And today's a very big one for us. We just want to go over some things that we all run into that kind of can keep us down or give us reasons not to keep moving forward, or halt our momentum that we just got started. And this doesn't even just happen to newer musicians or newer artists. This happens at every point in your career, whatever it may be. When you're taking whatever steps forward, there's always going to be people like this in your life that try to hold you back or tell you why you can't do things or why the old way is the best way and you just can't change that up, so on and so forth. But first thing we're going to talk about here is just what is gatekeeping? What is this whole phenomenon that we run into, and why is it bad, and what can we do about it? So the first thing we'll talk about here is gatekeeping itself. Is the definition here is the act of controlling and usually limiting general access to something. So in our case, we're talking about not so much that people can limit you or take away something, but more so that they're going to use negativity to control the situation and control the narrative around what you're doing. And a lot of what building a career is and getting that momentum going forward is building up a story behind you and telling that story to other people and getting them to be interested in it and buy into it. So when people start going the other direction and start cutting you down or go behind your back and start saying all the negative things, why you can't do this, why you'll never be that, why you don't have what it takes, that can start to undercut what you're doing and that sort of thing. But there's also more to that where you can go even further. And there are some situations where the gatekeeping can start to keep you out of opportunities, keep money out of your pocket, all those kind of things. So the first thing we want to touch on here is you should really be honest with yourself right now. Even if you're just beginning, you might have the best intentions. And if you're younger, maybe you won't notice this as much, but especially if you're older, you can call yourself out on this. Whoever you are, it's human nature to be on both sides of this. We all do gatekeeping on some scale, some bit of that. We're all guilty of this. And the point is that the more you're aware of it, the more you can call yourself on it. You could be, better about not gatekeeping. Usually with me, when I was early in my career, when you try to establish yourself or, build a presence, it's really easy to start saying why they're not good and why I should be doing what they're doing. And if you do any bit of self-reflection and you're aware of this, it's much better for you to start calling yourself out on it, saying, I'm not gaining anything by doing this or saying these things, but I can gain so much more by finding the positive. The instant you start to hear your thoughts or even those things come out of your mouth, where it might even be considered gatekeeping and just flowing towards the negativity, it really is that you start to get that moment where you're like, bam, like right into, let's find some positive. Name me 3 positives of why this is great and they're doing good things and what they're going to learn from this or how they're going to move forward. And the more you get that mindset, the more you become that positive person that people want to be around, people that want to look up to you or look to you for answers and insight, which builds a network. And as they grow, you grow. It's so much better than, like I said, the gatekeeping just starts to push you to all negative thoughts, and you want to avoid that at all costs. So, like I said, we're all guilty of this, but especially in the older generations, and it's just part of getting older and growing up. You start, you've seen things work a certain way. You've made it this far because those things have worked. You learned, you adapted back then, but you don't need to adapt now because you figured out what works. And we get comfortable and complacent and, like I said a million times, this is 100% a human nature thing, but we have to be aware of it. So huge thing I want to talk about here is just going forward. I want to identify three different types of this. These are in no way in a manual or anything. There's just three different types that I've seen and that I think are the most important to be aware of. And we're going to give them a couple different names. But the first one we'll go over here is the old guard. And that's the first one. And of course, that's the one we were just touching upon. That's where the elder generation, the ones that have done this for a longer time, 10 years plus, 15 years plus, 20 years plus, their entire lives. And they are usually the ones that are going to be the hardest ones to change their minds. And, they always want the best gigs. They have the reasons that they are they've been consistent and they're doing it the right way. And anything you come and do different, any new technology you're bringing into it, anything you try to change about how you're approaching either recording music or playing live music, they like to step in and say, that's not how it's done. That's not going to sound right. This is wrong because, they can't be serious. They're never going to make it. They don't have it. All these sort of things come from that built-in, understanding of I've done this right and that's how we do it. But you always have to be aware of this. And the best thing about that is if you can start to change their minds and get into them, and sometimes you can call them out being friendly about it, like, hey, I think might be stuck a bit in your old ways, your things are changing, or this is kind of the direction things are going, maybe you're not seeing this. It's really hard to see. And I can give a couple examples, of course, of having people come into the studio that are of that older generation, and they have this mindset of the old days where it's like, I'm just going to get a recording done, then I'll get out there, I'll get famous, I'll get somebody to get behind me, get signed into some kind of contract, or they'll come in and say, I'm going to live off the royalties from this. And you really have to have that sit down, that come to Jesus moment of, hey, things have changed a lot. That's not how things work anymore. You can't just put out an album and then call that a success. There has to be a lot of work behind it. A lot of people are just doing singles and then they'll promote that one and it's on to the next one. It becomes this schedule, this grueling grind of getting things out there to become relevant and get out there and be the top of mind for everybody. And explaining this change to those people, it's never like the kicking and screaming. It's just like, okay, I didn't know that. And almost to a T every time I've seen it happen, and they adjust and they adapt, and it's like, okay, so I'm still going to do this, but my expectations are now, if I want to get here, I'm going to have to change with what's happening during the current time. So you can change their mind, you can show them how, but at the same time, it's just a balance like everything else in life. They got where they are for a reason, so they have a lot of wisdom. They do know things. There's a lot to learn from them. There's much to take away from them. So it's always, finding that balance of what is right, what has worked, why have you made it this far, versus, what's going to work going forward, where do I need to adapt and change.
Hi there, and welcome to the ad break. We're just going to take a moment to let everybody know about our community of growing members, and if you'd like to be a part of that, just look at the info below and there will be a click there for an email sign up to join in and get your voice heard. As well, if you're enjoying this content, please join our Patreon at patreon.com/145rural. There you can join any of our groups, and you can add to the discussion of what topics we will choose that will help you and hopefully future members of our groups, as well as join monthly Q&As and other such benefits. Again, that's patreon.com/145rural, and we look forward to seeing you there. Now, back to that regularly scheduled episode, and enjoy that content. Thanks again.
The next one here is the one that we all are aware of. And like I said, it's one I was really talking about early in the beginning of this, where it was you change your mindset. It's the insecure is what we're calling this. And those gatekeepers are the ones that will it doesn't matter what you do or how great you are, or what you accomplish. They're going to tell you that, you're never going to make this because you aren't good enough. You're trash. You suck. You don't have the right look. You're too skinny. You're too fat. You're too dumb. You're too pretty. It doesn't matter. They'll find a reason. And it just comes down, haters going to hate. Simple, right? Haters going to hate. And that's just something you have to live with. There's always going to be those gatekeepers that no matter what you do, you should be part of the in crowd because you aren't the right look, you aren't the right fit, you aren't the right feel, you didn't pay your dues, so on and so forth. So always be aware that the insecure are the worst ones. They're the easiest to write off. If you, as soon as you gain your confidence, know what you have, know what you are, and you're okay with, making mistakes and just moving forward, it gets rid of the insecure and you move on. So be aware of that, though. Sometimes they just don't fall into any category except for the insecure. The third and the last one we're going to talk about is a big one because it affects everything you do, and that's the fiscal. And those are the ones that are the hardest ones to get over and the ones that can affect your pocketbook. And with these ones, it's like when you get that bad rap going from either the insecure or the old guard saying the bad thing, passing the word on. They can't play live shows. They can't draw people. They can't put on a good performance. They're unprofessional. They're late. Whatever the story they're passing along can start to get to booking agents and venues and all that. And they can start to build your reputation before you even know it. And you're having a hard time getting shows going and getting, the right place to get your music so that you start catching that momentum. And those are the fiscal ones are the ones that really, really hurt. And that's if you don't address these other ones beforehand or you're not aware of them and you're not controlling the narrative, that can really come up and bite you in the behind. You just need to be aware of, you don't want to have those gatekeepers in the financial end of things, those that have control of your performances and where you're playing and how you're getting paid and where you're getting paid and all those kind of things. You really, really don't want that. But those are the big ones. But just be aware, if you're going into this music or if you've even been in it for a long time, you're moving forward and there's some changes coming and you're going to be taking that next step and playing bigger shows at bigger venues. Every step comes with a new form of gatekeeper. So just be aware of that. And then, from there, we'll just keep a positive mindset and look for reasons to support the others around you. But that's all we have for this week. Just keep that in mind. For next week, we have a great interview with a musician who has done this his whole life. Watched his dad do music in his life and then took it on and became a musician and has lived off it his entire life. So great stuff there. Travis Yost, be sure to watch that one. And we'll see you on that next one. Subscribe and like, and we'll be here for that next week. Bye.